Welcome, everyone, to this Cup of Coffee podcast with me, your host, Tom Dillon. This has been recorded live at our Tin Pot mobile studio and broadcast around the world. Today's topic is quitting my 20-plus year corporate career using property I don't own with Jackie Gammage. Before we start, I'd like to say, by way of a disclaimer, that today's a wonderful discussion, but that nothing said here constitutes financial advice. You should also take professional advice before investing your hard-earned cash. There may be the odd unplanned swear word along the way as well. The form for today is probably we'll just have a chat because that's nice, isn't it? Who doesn't want a chat? I think I've got a tea. I think Jackie might have a drink, but she might not. Who knows?
Coffee.
Um, oh, hey, she's got a beverage. So I think we're good to go. Let's learn a little bit about Jackie together. After breaking free from a 20-year corporate career to design a life built around freedom, Jackie launched her first property business at the age of 55. 4 years later, she's never looked back. By generating regular, recurring income from property she doesn't own, Jackie has completely redesigned her lifestyle, proving it's never too late to create the life you want. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Tom.
How
Nice
you
to
doing?
meet you.
Oh, real pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on. Uh, why don't we start with a little backstory, a little bit about you, for those I'm sure some people listening will know you well already, and some people won't. So, how did you start off? Maybe pre-property. What's your sort of story, and how did you get to the point of thinking, this is no good, or I want to change something?
I've got a few decades behind me at the moment. So I've got a few stories to tell, but I'll try and keep it fairly short.
Mm,
So I When I was in my 20s, I actually had a significant mental health breakdown, and there's a reason I'm saying this. So I was taken out of my job, I lost pretty much everything. And when I started to get back on my feet again, it was in my mid 30s. So I had to
mm,
rebuild my life in my mid 30s. So this
right.
is the second iteration of rebuilding my life in some ways. So I embarked on an HR career. I kind of fell into it actually, but I embarked on an HR career and I got fairly senior in my HR career. So there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, many, many hours of work.
Mm,
So I was doing really well. I was earning good money. But I got to around about my mid to late 40s and I started to question, is this it, right? And do you know what? I talked to so many people in my situation that as it was then who are starting to ask those very same questions. Is this it? Like, what is my life? Like, surely there must be more to life than just going to work all the time. And my additional worry, as it is for many, many people anyway, is that I didn't really have much of a pension
mm,
because I hadn't been contributing to a pension through my 20s. And I didn't contribute to a pension for many of my years in my 30s, even when I was working and I had my HR career, because I thought, oh, I'm going to do property at some point, and that will make me more money than my pension is ever going to give me. So I didn't contribute. So my pension wasn't very good either because I never actually did property. So I wasn't contributing to my pension. And I hadn't been from the 20s because I'd been ill and wasn't working.
mm,
So I really was getting really panicky, really worried and anxious about, wow, like I'm going to have to work till I drop dead, basically. And I actually don't want that. But I didn't really know the way out. I didn't understand about property at all. I just thought property would be a good thing. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe my mum had mentioned it one time. So I got into quite a black hole, actually. Now I look back on it, I can see it. I felt stuck, really panicky. I felt like life was passing me by, and I didn't really know what to do. And I tell you what, I discovered at the right time a book by Mel Robbins called, I think it was called You Control Your Life, or You Can Control Your Life, something like that. Read that book and it gave me hope and it gave me some inspiration that I could turn things around and live the life that I really did want, not just work myself into the ground, hoping that I'm going to have some kind of life at the end of whatever my work career was going to take me in my 90s or something. So I was in this real black hole, feeling really stuck, like life was passing me by, knowing that I wanted more from life, but not really knowing what to do. Found the book, and that's when I started to look into property and just do a little bit of exploration. How can I get into property? Now, I had the same thoughts as so many people. Property is for a particular type of person. So in my head, it was for really, really successful people already who already knew about properties magically. who already had loads and loads of really rich people that they knew, and they were rich too. That to me was a property investor. I don't know where I got that from, but so I just kind of thought, I can't really do property, but I did start exploring it. So, and then I kind of happened on some training, and I never looked back from that training really. I went on a training course, spent a lot of money on my first training course. I was absolutely bricking it because it was so much money. I'd never invested that much money in myself, but I
Mm,
learned that there was a possibility. You know, the biggest thing that I learned on the very first place that it was a discovery day actually. The biggest thing that really opened my eyes was they talked about vision and they talked about what do you want from your life, and they got you dreaming about stuff which we kind of don't do anymore, isn't it? And that really, really, I was like, wow, this is a whole nother world. I was around people that were all thinking in the same way, and I was like, wow, I want to join this world. Because it was so very different to the corporate that I was working in, you know, at the time, which is, you know, HR is hard work, you know, really hard work. And this was really exciting and it was really creative and it was really the possibilities. It just really opened up my mind. So that's how I first got into property, was just
mm.
because I felt so stuck and so much like life was passing me by. And I knew deep down I didn't want that. I wanted more. I just didn't quite know what.
Uh, Absolutely. An excellent series of points there. What's, for those who don't know, what's a discovery day? That's
A
the,
discovery day is you might have a property training company or a property trainer who just works on their own, or property mentor, and it's really them introducing you to whatever it is that they're teaching usually, and just so that you can kind of explore things. They're usually free. There might be a nominal fee, but it introduces you to the possibilities of that, whatever it is that they're teaching. And
yeah.
so they'll teach you a little bit. Obviously, they can't teach you everything in just one half day or one full day, but it definitely spikes your interest, and then you can go on to do other courses if you wanted to, or to explore other things if you wanted to. Yeah, there's a story behind that one, but anyway, I'll leave that to later.
I think you make an excellent point around the fact that property is quite creative, isn't it? Or it can be.
Yeah,
Nearly always is, and that is
yeah,
a big difference to a lot of people's kind of professional lives, and that's one of the big benefits. And maybe isn't talked about so much. Like, sure, on the adverts, it'll always say, you know, make 5 grand a month from property, and maybe so it should because that's what's going to get people to do something. But actually, it very
yeah,
rarely says get creative and actually have some fun doing what you like to do. And that would be also true.
yeah,
So one of the plus points. Yeah, and you sort of made the point, but I think it's worth sort of dwelling on is there's a real energy in those rooms, isn't there?
yeah.
And if they're done well anyway, and that's really a powerful thing, and especially if you're like you were saying, I've done advertised property courses now, which I'm not, but like you, I've got a lot from training and mentoring, so I've got mostly nothing but good things to say about those things. My point is, no, your point was, yeah, I'm sort of changing you or expanding, and you can tell me if I'm doing this wrongly. Is to say if you're listening to this and maybe you're watching this and feeling stuck, feeling like Jackie was saying about not feeling like you're realizing your potential or that life's passing you by, to use Jackie's phrase, then there's things you can do, and
Yeah.
probably if property is something that interests you, then there are these places you can go and surround yourself with kind of exciting people and exciting days. Um, Okay, uh, so that was an excellent canter through kind of the how you got to property and you're starting property. What happened? What thing or things happened next? Where do we go from there?
Yeah, so I went to this discovery day. I bought a course. I
Mm.
cried and shook as I bought the course because I'd never invested that much money. And I don't think the salespeople really knew what to do with me. So they gave me a free uh, be your own bank or something CD, because it was CDs in those days.
Sure.
Because I don't think they'd seen anybody quite so shaky, nervous, crying at spending so much money on myself, because it's a lot. It was a lot of money, and then I did this course and I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to do this. I think it was BRR, which is
Mm.
by oh, what is it? Buy, refurbish, refinance. So you're buying a property, doing it up, and then you use money in a way that you can pull some of the money out and let it out to tenants. So I thought, I'm going to do that because that's the course that I did. And then something came into my periphery. it was another course, but it was a different property strategy because there were so many different property strategies.
Mm,
And so I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. And then I saw something else come into my periphery, and so on and so on. So I did loads and loads of different courses. I spent an awful lot of money, didn't need to spend anywhere near that much money. A big, big lesson. I talk about it lots. Make a decision really early on and just commit to it. You can always come back to the other property strategies, you know. I think it's so important because there's merit to researching the different things that are available and making a decision about which property strategy might be the best one for you. But I spent 4 years deciding which one was the best one for me, getting really frustrated, getting really despondent, almost giving up because, of course, I wasn't taking the actions that I was learning in each of these different properties because my efforts were being diluted. Don't forget, I was working in a really busy job, working
mm,
60 plus hours a week in a really high pressure job. So, you know, I didn't have time to be trying all these different actions for different, like multiple strategies. And that was my biggest downfall in terms of why it took me so long to get started in property.
mm,
Because had I made a decision early on and just committed to it without worrying about which one was going to be the best one for me, which one was going to work for me in my location, and just go, they all work, but you have to focus in on one and go all in. That's my biggest thing that I always say. Now, some people will disagree with that, but that is my experience.
yeah, sure. That's you can speak to that, right? You speak to your
Yeah.
experience better than anyone else. Okay, so um, so roughly speaking, of course, talking generally here, but you were maybe at the time working what, 50, 60 hours a week?
More than 60 hours a week because
Oh
I
wow.
was
Okay.
working in global companies and I had teams across the globe, or I worked with teams across the globe. America one side, Australia the other side, time zone, you'll know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Nightmare.
I have pairs of shoes in different time zones, and I find that fairly stressful. Never mind people, never mind people requiring my
Yeah.
assistance. Okay, so you've got a very busy person in the shape of Jackie here, working 60 plus hours a week. So, roughly speaking, and of course, I'm thinking about the people listening who might be in a similar situation. How many
Yeah.
hours a week do you think you had spare for property things? Are we talking about two, three, five? Presumably not
Good
that many.
question. Good question. It's very easy to think, and it was very easy to think at the time, I don't have any time spare. Where am I going to find the time? My firm belief is that's a state of mind. You
Mm,
will find time for things that are important for you. We always do.
mm,
It might not be easy and it might be more challenging for some, but if you really want something and you're really invested in something and you've got a really clear vision, I speak about this lots. If you've got that, that will drive you through, that will motivate you, and that will give you the mindset to find the bits of time that you need. So for me, the time that I needed, I mean, I was in a fortunate position because I had some flexibility in how I managed my time. I wasn't on a shop floor, but I was in meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And sometimes I would go into the toilets and make calls to agents just because there were no meeting rooms. And I knew if I was in a meeting room, I'd get interrupted. So you have to do what you have to do. I'd go out for a walk, make some calls whilst I was walking, you know, as my lunch break, for example. You
mm.
do what you've got to do, you know.
Okay, yes. So, but what you probably didn't have time for, just sort of parroting by what you said to me, is you didn't have time for eight strategies. You maybe had time for one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I used my holiday. I'm a very honest person, so I didn't really take any days off sick. I know some people take days off sick to do courses and stuff. I didn't. I always used my holiday for that. And yeah, I just, like I say, you do what you've got to do. And for me, you have to get into the right mindset. That's the most important thing. You have to know what you want. And trying to do too many property strategies is just like never going to work. It's all about focus, and we spoke about this earlier just before we started recording, didn't we? You know,
Sure.
using your time wisely, it means you're going to be much more productive and you'll get results.
Absolutely. So, to sort of round this bit out then, is if someone's starting off and they're maybe currently working 60 plus hours a week in a job, or even 40 plus hours, whatever it is, full-time hours, and they're thinking, because what you've talked about has a name, doesn't it? It's called shiny penny syndrome. It's one of the names
Yeah,
for
yeah,
where people, oh, this looks good as well.
yeah. I'm an expert in that.
Sure. Yeah, me too. I think less so, but absolutely, I've been there. I remember. I don't hope they don't mind me shouting them out. Went to Progressive Property,
Yeah,
Masopi event, multiple streams
yeah,
of property income
yeah.
event. Which, by the way, it was 10 years ago I went, but I thought it was an excellent event and a
Wow.
free. Just make sure you don't take your credit card, leave that at home, because
Yeah,
they'll try and say, "Oh, courses, and so they should. That's fine. But anyway, but I remember them at the end of the day presenting like a Christmas tree type thing, which showed all their different programs or courses on
Yeah,
it, and
yeah,
with some more basic strategies at the bottom, right up to sort of more
yeah,
advanced ones
yeah.
at the
I
top.
remember
And you're looking
that.
at, I remember thinking, crikey, that's a lot of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
I definitely can't do all those things, and no, I don't think anybody should try, because as you were saying, you should try and stay, especially to start with, try and stay focused on one or maximum two
yeah,
things. Okay,
yeah,
so but if someone new is getting into property listening to this and but they're like, well, hang on, that's all very well this. I'm supposed to focus on one property strategy. How am I supposed to pick? And what's a realistic time frame in order to choose? Because of course, people should have a little look around, shouldn't they? And should have at least be aware of
yeah,
maybe a few things.
yeah,
And if they're living in
yeah,
Canary Wharf versus where if they're living in Northern Scotland, that is going to change a little bit what's going to work
yeah,
well in their area. So
yeah,
what would be your way to say to sort of balance out how should people go about, and it will vary by person, but how should people
yeah.
balance out having a little look around but not spending 4 years on it? What would be a way to approach that, do you think?
So probably a couple of things which I'm probably going to forget now, but the first thing is set yourself a time limit for how long you spend to do research. There's lots of free stuff out there. You're never going to get very far with free stuff, to be honest. There's some really good quality free stuff, but it will take you forever, especially if you're working to piece everything together.
Mm,
And everybody's got different approaches as well. And so if you're looking at free stuff with this person and free stuff with that person, they all do things in a different way. You'll get confused. I promise you, you'll get confused. But set yourself a time limit and just think, right, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2 or 3 weeks just exploring and then just land on something and have faith in yourself that you just choose something, you'll make it work. Okay.
mm, mm.
So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be, oh, I've forgotten it. I've forgotten the second thing. I
Yeah.
told you I would. I
No,
told you it will come back to me. It will come
it,
back to me.
well, then I think what we've done there is we've filtered it down. We've got
Yeah.
everything down to one crucial point. So
Yeah.
so yeah, maybe spend 2 or 3 weeks or maximum to decide what you're going to do, and then do it. And
Yeah.
I would echo that. And
Yeah.
then what I'd say is spend then a good portion of time, whether that's 2 or 3 months, whatever, and really do the thing you've decided to do, and then reassess. Because if you're like, oh, I've done the thing I decided to do, and I'm now broke, well, then maybe maybe, maybe that's not work, does it?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if you've done
Yeah.
one deal or two deals, whatever it was you were trying to do, or 20, and it's going okay, well, then stick with it a bit more. So
Yeah.
you can always reassess, but actually put into a chunk of time where you and on purpose make a decision to say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend any time doing other courses or other programs. Oh no, I'll just fit this in. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't do that. Just focus
Yeah.
because otherwise you get too diluted, and it's hard enough anyway, property, when you're actually doing it. You don't
Yeah,
need
and
to
you do
put in
have to
more.
think about like location to some degree.
Mm,
Like if you're in a really remote place, but if most people are living in, populated areas, that's probably my belief is if you want something to happen, you'll make it happen. You just have to be creative around how you make that happen.
mm.
I've just remembered the second thing that I was
Here
going
we
to
go.
say.
We're back in.
So set yourself a time limit. That would be the first thing. And
Mm,
then the second thing is what's important to you at the moment. It's quite a short-term approach, but I think it's useful to consider this, is do you need cash flow? Is cash flow your primary concern at the moment? Or do you want, because I was quite snobby with property investment when I first started out. Do you want to buy property and you don't really need the cash flow at the moment? You're happy to wait for cash flow and just build a portfolio or assets that are going to build your wealth much longer term, which is much slower. So those two kind of things really change what you might choose in terms of a property strategy, because many property strategies are much longer term, but some are much more quick, but you're not buying assets. Do you know what I mean? Which is what I
mm.
do. So those two think questions to ask yourself are like cash flow or can I wait for cash flow? That would definitely affect the decision that you'd make around the property strategy that you do.
And I don't know about you, but I'd say, first of all, I think that's excellent advice. Second of all, I think probably 95% or more of people who approach me as maybe mentoring clients or whatever, they want some cash right now
Yeah,
because
normally.
they're in a similar boat to you were
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
that they're looking to maybe move away from a job usually. So
yeah, yeah,
but there are people. I had one chap who was a senior doctor and had a few different practices. So he was sort of a manager of a doctor's surgery. So he was a very wealthy man already, and for him it was the other way, that he wanted more a sort of a pension and to put money
Yeah.
into assets for long
Yeah.
term. So both happen. Okay, well then why don't we use that as a good leaping springboard to look then at what you did next, and maybe once you'd spent 4 years deciding what to do, at what you then very successfully got into doing,
Yeah.
which was the kind of the holy grail of property. What's often held up, is it like what is it, the Lion King, where he's got the the Simba, whatever the
Oh, I
baby
don't
lion's
know.
called.
I don't know.
Well, there's a anyway. Anyone watching hopefully get this famous scene, and the holy grail of property, I think, is often how to invest in property with not a lot of money or no money of your own,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make some good return on it, right? Because that feels like creating money out of nothing, which it kind of is. And something I think I'm right in saying you've done very successfully. So why don't you give us sort of the bones of that and how that worked?
Yeah. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago that I was quite snobby in terms of property. So I'd grown up thinking you buy property, you build your
Mm,
assets, and that's how you do property. Why would I want to do anything else and not build my asset base up? So there was a bit of snobbery around that. So when I first started looking at property strategies, I was aware of what I do, which is rent to rent HMO, but it was kind of like that. No, that's not for me. I don't want loads of tenants, dirty, smelly tenants. That's not for me. I don't want that. I'm far too good for that. I'm joking, really, but it wasn't something I was particularly interested in. Let's put it that way. I used to joke about it with my friend, and we say, "Wouldn't it be fun if we ended up with 25 tenants?" Ha 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 ha. Yeah, like 40 tenants later.
yeah,
So it wasn't anything I was particularly interested in. But then the more I started to think about like what is it I actually want, what's my vision for my life, I knew I wanted to get out of my job. It was stressing me out. I was really unhappy and I wanted something fast. And everything was shouting at me, Jackie, you need to do rent to rent HMO, da 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 da, And I resisted it for a little while. What led me to actually get off my butt and take some action is actually a couple of things. My brother, very unexpectedly for me, I think my mum saw it coming, but I definitely didn't. My brother died, and he was
mm,
less than a year younger than me, and he was 53 at the time. I was 54. And that was an absolute catalyst to me getting off my butt and committing to one property strategy. And I've
mm,
actually got something called the 5-1s strategy now that I've adapted from 5-1 strategy that someone else uses in marketing and sales or something. And I thought, okay, that actually works really well for property. When my brother died, I vowed to him that I mean, he wasn't alive, but I vowed to him because his spirit carries on,
sure.
that he wouldn't have died in vain. And there were two things. Me, I was going to live my life how I wanted to, and I was going to get over all my fears and all my doubts. And then, secondly, I was going to spread the word that other people need to do this and they need to lead fulfilled lives and they can, and all of that jazz. And that's what drives me.
Mm,
So I just didn't want him to have died in vain. Something good had to come from it. That is what drives everything I do pretty much now, really.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I got off my butt, and the second thing that happened was there was a mentor that I'd been talking to for a little while. He said, Jackie, you just need to choose one thing. Now, I've probably heard that 7 million times from other mentors, but at that very moment in time, it resonated.
You
And
really did
so I
it.
chose rent to rent
Yeah.
HMO.
Mm,
And the really big thing, and it sounds really stupid and it sounds really obvious, but the really big thing was every other property strategy will still be there waiting for me should I decide to change my mind. Like in
yeah.
my head, it was like, if I make this decision, that's it. There's no going back.
Yeah.
And if it's
Yeah.
wrong for me,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
screwed. My
Yeah.
whole life is screwed. And you see how we change all this stuff, these stories that we tell ourselves.
Mm,
And then when I started doing it, it's like, oh, this is really easy. Yeah, I can't believe how easy this is.
mm,
So as soon as I made up my mind and committed to that one strategy, I got 3 properties in 3 months. One of them
mm,
whilst I was on holiday in Turkey. State of mind again. You just make things happen, right? And I was earning just over 3,000 a month.
mm,
And they were 3 hours away from me as well. I don't advocate people doing that. But
sure.
I did it working a 60-hour week.
Mm. Well, there you go. first of all, really sorry to hear about your brother, of course, and
Yeah.
but
Mm.
delighted, if that's the right word, that's
Yeah.
led you to be here. So
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah,
helping other people, hopefully. So something,
yeah,
as you say, something good's come out of it. So
yeah,
that's great. On then to the, yeah, it's funny you were saying just once you make a decision for anyone else just struggling maybe to make that decision is yeah, it doesn't go well. You're not sent off to the moon, is it? Yeah, like
yeah.
we've been
I
out sticking out
know.
of space. No, like single lets and buying HMOs or
Yeah,
lots of flats, whatever it might be, lease options.
yeah,
It's all still there.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
and do that
I
as well
don't
if
know
you
why
want.
I didn't, it just clicked. Something clicked. It was like,
Mm.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
Yeah,
I like this that idea that you have to lean gently against a problem for a long time. Sometimes you can batter
yeah,
away at it if you want, but it
yeah,
often doesn't work. Just have to
yeah,
lean and put a little bit of pressure on, and eventually the solution will come to you. So it seems like you're having
yeah,
a bit of a mental block there, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
just keep going for long enough, and then you're
yeah,
able to hear what the mentor said to you, and you actually
yeah.
it
It was
hit
the right
at the wrong
time, wasn't it?
time.
I obviously
Yeah,
was meant to hear it
right,
at
exactly.
that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it's funny how that happens.
yeah,
And delightful. I think that another phrase that I like is that if you move a little bit towards the universe, and I'm not a big woo-woo person, but if you move a little bit
yeah.
towards the universe, I find the universe does move towards you, and stuff starts to
Oh,
align and
yeah,
come
yeah.
into place.
I
Which
could
I
talk about that for England. I got into the whole mindset thing after left my job because a year later, after I got my 3 properties, I left my job. Woohoo! Freedom, headspace. But
breathe.
I started looking into mindset. I discovered Bob Proctor, and so like the whole woo-woo universe stuff, whether you want to call it universal, it's changed my life, honestly. Like I'm a completely different person inside. I wouldn't be here talking to you. So yeah, I'm proper into woo-woo stuff now.
Well, I'm grateful to Bob as well, and that's
Yeah,
another person
Bob
to thank.
Proctor's my hero, yeah.
So, there might be some people listening going, this is all very good, this Tom and Jackie, but what on earth is a rent-to-rent HMO?" So, just to
Yeah,
rewind a bit, what is, because it sounds a bit gobbledygook for those who don't do this
yeah,
all day every day, what is a rent-to-rent HMO in simple terms? And yeah,
yeah.
what should people know about how that works?
So, in a nutshell, you're earning money from property you don't own. So, I'm gonna say
Mm,
that bit first. So, you don't need large sums of money because you're not buying, and it's very quick because you're not buying. You don't have lengthy solicitor processes, conveyancing processes. But basically, what you do is you find somebody that owns a property. My model is very simple. They're already HMOs. I don't
mm,
do like the whole thing about like turning a house into an HMO. But I always explain an HMO is a house of multiple occupation. So I start with that bit and then I explain the rent to rent, what the rent to rent bit is. So a house of multiple occupation, if you think about your typical student house, because most people can relate to that,
yeah.
it's a big house that might have 5 or 6 bedrooms, for example, and you get a bunch of tenants, a group of people who go in, they pay a rent to the owner of the house, the landlord, and they have a room each, but they share the bathrooms and they share the kitchen, living room if there is one, garden, and things like that. Okay.
Mm,
That would be what most people can relate to as an HMO, just to keep things really simple. So it's a shared house. You've got a bunch of people that have all got a room each, and usually they'll share communal areas. So that's it simple terms.
yeah.
The rent to rent bit is where you are paying to the landlord as a rent to rent operator a rent that you agree with the landlord. Okay. And then you're getting the rent from the people that are letting the rooms. You're subletting the rooms. It's all perfectly legal. You're subletting the rooms to that bunch of people. And then you pay a few bills, and what's left over you give to the landlord. So you give yourself a profit as well. And then what's left over you give to the landlord. So you're paying the landlord a rent every month, and you're getting rent in from the people that are renting your rooms. That's rent to rent. So
So,
that's it.
if I'm a landlord, I'm playing devil's advocate now in case it's not
Yeah,
obvious from my tone.
yeah,
If I'm a landlord of a property, why on earth would I want to rent out this property to you if I can get more money? If I could just rent this out myself to say 5 or 6, whatever it
yeah,
might be,
yeah,
tenants and get X a month. Why would I take this
yeah.
lower figure where you're making a profit? Why would I take this lower figure from you,
Yeah.
rather than do it myself?
It's a great question. It's a very valid question too. There's a space for certain landlords who are interested in it. Some landlords aren't because they're financially motivated and they want to carry on managing their own property. Some landlords use agents to manage their properties for them, and they pay the agents a fee so that they don't have to get their hands dirty and they could sort of sit back a little bit. Some landlords want certainty, that they want to have a regular rent coming in, and that's more important to them. It's usually the certainty thing. So they would rather have a guaranteed rent for a longer period of time.
Mm.
Usually, my contracts are between 3 to 5 years in term, length of term. So they would rather have the peace of mind that they're going to get a regular rent coming in. All the bills are paid. They don't need to worry about any of that. I mean, obviously they need to pay, if they've got a mortgage, they'll pay their own mortgage and stuff. And they don't need to worry about rooms being empty because I take care of all that because I'm taking that risk on. I
Mm.
take care of minor maintenance in my particular model. So they would still need to sort out maintenance, but many of the landlords I deal with go through agents. So they're still using an agent. So the next question would be, why would an agent want to do that then? And I get asked this a lot, and I had to get my head around this as well because I didn't understand it at the beginning. I was like, well, yeah, but why would they? So you've got a landlord who'll pay an agent a fee to look after the property for them so that they can sit back. The landlord is interested in an agreement with me, a rent to rent agreement with me through the agent because they're getting the guaranteed rent and some of the maintenance, the minor maintenance will be done by me. They'll know that I'm looking after their property really well, and so will the agent. So the agent carry on getting their fee from the landlord, but that I'm doing all the work for the agent. So the agent are getting a fee and I'm doing quite a lot of the work for them. So they don't need to worry. I'm taking a big chunk of workload off them. And the landlord's happy as well because they're getting the certainty of the rent. So it really depends on what the motivations are for the landlord. It's not for all landlords because, like I say, some of them are motivated by money and they want to get as much money as possible. But it tends to be the older school landlords
Mm.
who perhaps don't have large mortgages on their properties. So they're not driven by the money side, the financial side. They just want the certainty and they want peace of mind. Their property is being looked after properly because it will be. If I didn't look after it, I wouldn't be able to get tenants and then I'd be screwed. So really, it's a win-win situation for everybody for the right people
Mm.
because it isn't for everybody.
Sure. If you're so the as Jackie well explained there, that but started to expand on it a little bit. So the term, because it's confused me for a while, rent to rent refers to Jackie in this case, or anyone
Yeah,
will rent the property from the landlord, and in turn will rent it to tenants. And so that helped me. Okay, right, that was a libel moment. That's
yeah,
why it's called rent to rent.
yeah,
The property is rented from someone to someone else, and then if you like legally sublet to other people's, hence rent to rent. If
yeah,
you're hearing about this for the first time, my guess is that your mind is blown. I know mine was first time I heard about this years ago, and so
yeah.
feel free to pause, just take a minute, have a cup of tea, just go away and come back, whatever, because otherwise you'll just find it'll discombobulate for the entire day. And then just have a re-listen. It took me about a month to get my head around this, and
Yeah,
we won't. I'm glad to know we won't explain lease options today, but lease options are essentially rent to rent with bells and whistles on top, with a sale at the
yeah,
back
yeah,
end. So strap yourself in for that one. So anyway, so that's rent to rent explained, I think, hopefully, in broad terms. Okay, so the obvious next question I'm sure you get a lot, most rent to rent folks do, is how do you find and then get in touch with people who might be interested in your services, in landlords who might be amenable to doing a rent to rent
yeah,
agreement with you?
yeah. So there are lots and lots of different ways you can do this, but my model is very, very simple because I get overwhelmed really easily and I don't want overwhelm. That's not the life I'm designing. So my model is very, very simple. That's what people like about it. I only get existing HMOs.
Mm,
So I don't need to worry about any what can you call it that people would understand? Anything that the local authority might want
mm,
in terms of the size of the rooms. There are certain stipulations about the area that you're in as well as to whether you'd be able to get an HMO license. I don't have to deal with any of that because the houses are already licensed. They are already HMOs. Okay, so that's the first thing. And I only get them from agents. So there are lots of different marketing methods you can use to find rent to rent HMOs, to find the landlords who have got these HMOs. I go to agents, letting agents specifically,
right.
and I build rapport with the agents, keeping things really, really simple. That's all I do, is I focus on building rapport with agents. You only need one or two agents that you get to know. They know you, like you, trust you. People do business with people they trust, and they will pass you the they're the ones that know the landlords. They're the ones that landlords will, especially the old school landlords, they go to traditionally, they'll go to a letting agent and say, look after my property for me. So they're in a letting agents in a really great position because they've got large portfolios that they're looking after. And they have the conversations with the landlords. They know the landlord's motivations. So it makes sense to get to know the agents, build a really trusting relationship with the agents. And when they're having conversations with landlords, they'll say, oh, I've got this lady that does blah, blah. I think she can help you. Would you be open to a conversation about this? So, yeah, I just focus on letting agents. That's how I find them. I build rapport with the agents and then I go on viewings and make offers and get them.
Then to again, just so people are really clear on it, and so I'm clear on it as well, is you've gone from a situation of having nothing property-wise in a relatively
Yeah,
short space of time to having an income comparable to a decent full-time wage or
yeah,
more,
yeah,
without by controlling but not owning any property and by making an income from essentially from
yeah.
the work you've done, but also from those agreements that you've struck with landlords. Is that right?
Yep, yep. You have to be, just going back to the agreement thing though, you
Sure.
have to be, you have to think of every scenario and ensure it's covered in your agreement.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got to feel comfortable about every single piece of detail that you're talking about. So the what if, you know, you want to cover like who's going to do the maintenance, and if it's a little bit fuzzy, because a lot of the time it's the agents and the landlords that want to use their own template, by the way. And so you have to know what you're looking for. And so you need to, if you've got a question in your head about, well, what happens if this, and it's not written in the agreement that they're giving to you, make sure that you cover it. Cover it off. Now, who's going to do what in a situation where there might be a maintenance issue, for example? What level of maintenance are you going to do? Because you're certainly not going to be spending a ton of money on their asset if they've got like a boiler problem or a structural problem, for example. So you need to make sure that you get really detailed about so that all your what if questions are answered, because most of it's logic. Most of it, if you've got a question, make sure it's covered in the agreement. There's obviously more to it than that, but it's not rocket science, really. It's not
Mm,
complicated. I
sure.
think we think it is, but it's not really.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think my experience with property is it's not rocket science, because if it
Yeah,
was, I wouldn't be doing it. But
yeah,
it's a lot of little things, and
yeah,
like a lot of things, you do those things well, and then if possibly you systemize them so that someone else does them for you, and the
yeah,
more you can do
yeah,
that, then the more it feels less and less like a job, and more
yeah,
like, as you
yeah,
say,
yeah.
a life, with more freedom in it than most people are privileged to have. So, which brings me on to my sort of next thing I wanted to chat about. Okay, so you did that. You talked about your first doing 3 deals in 3 months. Have you carried on since then? Have you been
Yeah,
growing the business? And
yeah.
what's life like now? And what opportunities and challenges do you have in the business now and then going forward, do you think?
Oh, good questions. So yeah, I got my first three in 3 months, and then
Mm,
I kind of went a little bit slow. Got maybe two or three more, and then another one just here and there. But I
mm,
wasn't really focusing on scaling it like I could have done, because I was just enjoying life. I quit my job a year later, and I was just like, oh wow, this is amazing.
and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like
No, well, that's what I wanted, but you do
yeah.
have to keep your eye on the ball a little bit. That was one of my big mistakes that I made because then I started looking at coaching other people, and because that's my passion. When I started working in HR, I kind of got into HR really because I started off in learning and development. And I've always wanted to be a teacher. It's always been in me.
Mm,
And I got into learning and development. I specialised. That was my specialism. So I've trained loads of people. I've designed loads of courses and programs, set up mentoring schemes and all that kind of jazz. But I moved further and further away from that as I got promoted into HR, more focused roles in HR.
mm,
I mean, that was a big piece of like, "Oh, I'm not really fulfilled in my job. I've gone away from what I was really doing. But I've kind of come full circle now because that passion, I'm putting into teaching other people how to do it as well. Do you know what I mean? That's I've gone back to my nice place, and I took my eye off the ball really, and I didn't rent to rent HMO. Chose it because it's pretty passive once you get things set up properly, which is what I wanted, and because it's much more. In my eyes, it's much more regular income. Like if you get good tenants, you know you're getting regular recurring income.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to worry about bookings like you do with serviced accommodation, which is like your Airbnb booking type, booking.com type things.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose that rather than serviced accommodation. Because as you know, you can do rent to rent for serviced accommodation as well. And I didn't want that. I wanted the certainty and the steadiness, really. Where was I going with that? I can't remember.
Am I
Oh,
married? Uh, uh, oh,
so I can't remember why I was saying that now.
something about
Oh,
something.
where I am with life now. So
Oh yeah.
I took my eye off the ball a little bit, but I did get a few more. You know, I'd literally just phone up an agent. So my fourth property, I phoned up an agent. This is how simple it is, actually. I do want to tell this actually. So I had been off sick. I was off sick. I'd had like a really nasty cold. I never call it flu because it definitely wasn't flu, but it was horrible. I had flu-like symptoms and I wasn't very well. And you know when you start to get better, and you start to get better and you try and do things when you're kind of suffering from like a really nasty cold. And
Mm.
then every time you try and do something and exert some effort, you're like, oh, back to square one again, you know, but you feel better for short periods of time, short bursts. Well, I was at that stage and I thought, do you know what? I really need to get out of this job. Let me call another, because the three that I had wouldn't have been enough for me. So let me call the agent I've got one of my properties with, see if they've got any others. You know, I really didn't expect anything. So I called the agent and I said, I don't suppose you've got any other properties in the area, have you? And she said, oh, we do actually. Would you be in? She sent me a couple of links. So I had a look at the links. One of them in particular interested me. So I said, oh, I can't really get to a viewing because it's a long way to go. It's 3 hours away, remember? I can't really get to a viewing and I'm not very well. But would you be able to do a video viewing for me? So she said, yeah, I'll pop round later on this afternoon. I think it was later on that afternoon. So she popped round and did a video viewing. That gave me the opportunity to view. I said, can you just home in on that bit and home in, you know, that kind of thing. And then I said, right, I'm going to put an offer. I always was taught myself to put offers in on every property, unless there's really exceptional circumstances, to put an offer on every property that I view. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put an offer in on this property subject to viewing in person, because then it will make it worth my while doing a 3 hour trip to go and view it. So this is the one occasion when I did actually extend my sickness. Probably I could have gone back to work, but I didn't. I went on the viewing. But that's probably the only time I've ever done that. And I'm not saying people, because I'm an HR professional, don't do that. Don't take time off sick to go view your properties. I did do it on that day. And so he accepted the offer. I've still got that property, but I'm handing it back on Friday because he's selling. But I put the offer in, he accepted. There was a bit of to and fro. He accepted, and then I went up to view the offer, and I had the keys a few weeks later because it was a student property. Yeah, and that's how I got my fourth. But that is how simple it is, just making some calls. That's it's not hard. So I've done dribs and drabs, but I haven't really focused. And I've now got them dotted all over the place. And I'm trying to move from up north to one focused area. That's what I say to people, just one location. It makes things so much more easy. So I've been focusing on my coach and took my eye off the ball a little bit. And then some of the contracts have come to an end, and I didn't really have any others in the pipeline. The Renters' Rights Act came in, like landlords want to sell. Oh, it's just like, yeah. I took my eye off the ball a little bit. So, because what I forgot, I'm really passionate about coaching. So I started to look at all my coaching stuff, didn't really build any more of my portfolio. That was all ticking along nicely. Renters' rights came in. It's like, okay, I've lost three properties now. And it's like, I've got nothing in the pipeline. Get back on the phone, start rebuilding those relationships. Don't do that at home. Because it's the rent to rent HMOs that are actually bringing in my regular recurring income. That's the
Yeah.
core business. That's what's keeping me ticking over, you know? So
Yeah.
never ever lose sight of the core business, what's bringing in your revenue, which I did. That's one of my big mistakes that I made.
Sure. And very honest of you to say so. So then, presumably now or fairly recently, sort of, as you said there, you're still thinking, right, crikey. So then it's a time to reconnect those relationships and build a
Yeah,
portfolio back up. Would that be right?
yeah, yeah. So I've got another one that I'm taking on in September. I've got another two. One of them's a little bit, he's still deciding whether he wants to sell or not, but he's agreed the rent. It's just whether he makes up his mind.
Yeah,
The other
that's fair
one
enough.
is definite. I've got the contract all signed and everything. The other
Okay.
contract is signed, ready for when he makes up his mind. So
Yeah,
yeah, so I've got another two potentially, definitely one that I'm taking on, and I've got some others that I'm going to be going and viewing later this week. So yeah,
that sounds like back on track, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's
it's
great.
easy when you've got a few. Like I'm not going to lie and say, that I'm starting from scratch because I'm obviously not starting from scratch, and I've got a portfolio behind me. I've been running this for 4 years now.
Sure.
Can't believe it's 4 years. But it is relatively easy for you to build rapport with agents. Just do what you say you're going to do. Turn up, call them back when you say you're going to call them back. Turn up for your viewings on time. It's not hard. So
Are
yeah,
you open with them at the start? So if you turn up for viewing or maybe give them a call, I'm talking about people who's starting off, so doing this essentially from cold. Would you be honest would you be honest or would you have a certain set of words that would you use to put their mind at rest? Because I'm saying this
yeah,
because if you turn up and say, my experience, if you turn to a viewing of say an existing HMO and say, I'm a rent-to-rent HMO type person, this is what I do, some agents would never speak to you again, or not take your calls in future because they're just not interested or don't understand that
yeah, yeah.
and they just don't want anything to do with anything they don't understand. Has that been your experience, or no, or would you just are you open and honest with people straight away, or would you how would you deal with that?
Yeah, I kind of tried and tested a few different approaches really, and I don't think there's any one right way, to be honest. I think it
Right.
depends on the agent's situation at the time and who they know they've got on their books and stuff. There are
Yeah.
some agents that just do not do company lets. I never use the word
Mm.
rent to rent, by the way. I always say company let because rent to rent instantly has got a bad name, because
Mm.
there are lots
It's a
of
red flag,
operators
isn't it,
out
for some
there,
people? Yeah.
yeah, that have really screwed people over because they just didn't know what they were doing. I'm sure they didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
So I don't use that word, but generally I have a kind of script that I follow. And it's either I've seen this property on Rightmove, is it still available? They say yes or no. Usually agents will know if it's a company that they just suss it out straight away. So they'll say, is this for you or is it for blah, 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 and I'll be like, oh no, it's for a company let. I only house blah, blah, blah. You're not allowed to say that now, but I house this particular type of tenant and I have been doing for 4 years. I bring that into my conversation because I can now. Never bullshit a letting agent, because they'll sniff it out straight away and straight away you'll lose credibility. So you do have to be open, but you don't have to say up front unless they
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
And there are ways around it. But ask if the property's available, go and view it and just have a chat and build rapport. Use the viewing as an opportunity to build rapport. Some people want to help somebody that's just starting out. They want to. So if you can show most people are really, really worried about credibility. I can't do it because I'm not credible. Like it's all right for you, Jackie. You've already got a portfolio and some experience, but I didn't at one point. And credibility is about so much more than being the person that knows absolutely everything about rent to rent HMO. And I always say this to people, credibility is about so much more than that because you could be a horrible person and they won't want to do business with you, but you could have like 100 million, HMOs, but they're still not going to want to do business with you. If you show up on time, you're professional, you're friendly, you remember your conversations with people, you can always take notes, I do. And you bring that into like, how's Poppy your dog? You were taken him to the vets last time we spoke. If you bring that into your conversation with the agents, they'll like you, they'll want to help you, you know?
Yeah, I think that's sound advice. Yeah, I've certainly found that. So, okay, so just to sort of round things out a little bit, I wanted to just briefly, if you wouldn't mind, sort of painting a picture with words about a bit of a challenge, isn't it? But if you're honest, just tell people a little bit maybe about how your life looked like when you're in the corporate world and what it looks like now, so that people can get a sense of, that might be something that's possible for them. Because I imagine it's got better.
Oh, yeah. It's the headspace that for me, like when you're rushing around, because like I had Carter was probably 6 or 7 at the time when I first started doing this. Remember, I spent 4 years getting started. So the headspace was the biggest thing. When I was able to quit my job, it was just like, oh my goodness, I've got time to actually think about what I want to do.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Mm.
So life when I was working, I would be starting meetings at 7 in the morning. So
Mm.
I'd be up preparing for the meetings. I'd be stressed out all the time because I was doing it felt like an impossible job. I didn't have control over my time and the work that was coming to me. I had to ask for time off frequently. I didn't have very much time off. My mind was always, even on a Saturday, it probably took me half a day to wind down and then half a day to wind back up to into work mode on the Sunday. So it wasn't really a whole weekend anyway. I was okay at switching off when I was on holiday, but you get these short bursts of time where you have to take your holiday. And it was always like, can I take my holiday on that day because the rest of my team want Christmas off? Christmas, a big one. I mean, like, I had to take care of my team, like I couldn't have Christmas off every Christmas because that wouldn't be fair, would it? I wouldn't be respected by my team. So we, had to take it in turns and stuff. So Christmas, I nearly always had to work over Christmas. The odd occasion that I'd be able to get the whole time off. And so it was just this horrible life's passing me by. I want to do so much, but I'm stuck in this job and I'm earning good money. But, like, do I really want to give up this good money and this whole internal conflict that nobody talks about, by the way, when you're giving up a career? Not many people talk about that because you
Mm.
work so hard to get this career up
Right.
and running. You've got to let go of all that psychologically. So that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, I just felt so stuck.
Mm.
And so you get to a certain point in life and you're just like panicking because time gets so much more, it just goes so much more quickly the older and older you get. So it's like, oh no, another year's passed and I'm still no further forward to my freedom. Now, here's what this is genuine as well. My life looks like, well, I went away to see my friend last week, didn't have to ask permission, can go when I want. I can take a day off when I want. I'm quite disciplined. I do sort of try and do a little bit of work every day, but I don't have to. I can take a day off and go and see friends. I can go away when I want to. I can do my work. I was still doing little bits of work when I was with my friend, by the way, because you can. You don't need to be on the ground all the time. And I can I spend quite a lot of time just sitting in the garden watching the birds.
It's that's I think a thing that sounds kind of funny, but it's also probably what a lot of people want to do.
Oh
It's
my
kind of like that's the
goodness.
dream for a lot
Yeah.
of people, isn't it? Sitting in the
Yeah.
garden, doing whatever it is, sitting around. It's kind of what it's a great thing to do with your
Well,
time, and also when good ideas can come to you just and you're sitting around.
yeah, see, this is the headspace thing. The whole, you really, it's such an important point, actually. The whole headspace thing allows you to be creative and start thinking about what you really want to do. That's how I got into my coaching again.
Mm,
Because it's like, what do you really want to do? You've got the
yeah,
headspace to really dream and really start to pursue things. And do you know what I mean? Like, you just don't get that time when you're so busy all the time.
yeah.
I've never looked back, and I tell you what, I'm so much more fulfilled. Now, I probably don't, well, I probably do actually earn as much money. I'm not a millionaire, let's put it that way. Okay. I don't even know if I want to be a millionaire. I'm happy with the freedom that I've got and the choices that I've got. Now, that I still want to build some more wealth, but I, and if my friend mocked me and says, it's not really the freedom lifestyle that you say it is, and I'd be like, well, I'd rather take a 5 minute call. Because literally, and I didn't say this actually, when I had 3 properties, I would say once it's all set up, there's a flurry of activity when you first take on a property because you've got to get it set up and you've got to get the tenants in.
Yeah.
And then it just stops. You still have responsibilities, of course, but I was probably those 3 properties, and I was in my 60 plus hour a week job, were taking me between 1 to 2 hours a week to manage. And it wasn't even 2 hours. I just say it because that was the truth for maybe 2 or 3 weeks because I had a flood in there was a water leak in one of the flats in a building and they had to discover who, well, didn't have a clue how to handle that. I didn't know what to do. I should have just gone straight to the agent. I learned that now, but I didn't. I wanted to handle everything myself because I didn't want to bother the agent. But yeah, 1 to 2 hours a week, and it wasn't even an hour a week most of the time. But I say it's 2 hours because, and that was giving me 3,000 net. I mean, you still have to take tax off if you're going to pay tax and stuff like that. But that was giving me 3,000 for like 1 to 2 hours a week, and well, that equates to about 300 and something pounds an hour. If you work, I did a calculation in one of my posts.
That's not bad, not bad hourly rate, isn't it? You've reminded
No.
me before we
Yeah.
bring things to a close that I meant to and we didn't talk about sort of some typical numbers for the kind of deals because people that's a typical question I get on these things and I forgot to
Mm.
run through one. So if you wouldn't mind,
Mm.
why don't we what if just what would be and of course this deals are all different, but just as a typical
Yeah.
numbers, what would be a typical rent you might pay for a landlord for say what is it, 5 bed? Would that
Oh.
be a
5 beds. I don't really have. I've had 5 beds before, but I don't really have 5 beds now. They don't
okay?
only because you don't get the economies of scale. That the real sweet spot starts at 6.
Okay. Why don't we talk about obvious one then?
Yeah,
Talk about a
yeah,
6.
yeah. So it does depend on the area you're in.
Mm,
So rents are higher in some, like up north, it's maybe a little bit cheaper, not
sure.
always. But down south, you pay more.
Yeah.
So I've got a property that I pay. Oh, this is a little bit different actually, but I've got a property that I pay 4,000 for. The
Right.
reason it's so high is because all my bills are included.
All right.
Yeah, it's just the way it was set up with the landlord. It's in a block because it's an ex-student block. So
Sure.
all their bills are all kind of set up so that it was easy for them to manage. And I'm like, that's fine because I know exactly what profit I'm getting now.
Sure.
The only
Well,
thing I pay is council tax there.
mm. And then speaking of that, what are the room
So
rates
this is
there
a
or
yeah, so this is an 8 bed.
mm,
I can't remember specifically how much the bills are, the council tax is, and I
sure.
pay for cleaner as well.
Yeah.
So, but I make so the rents are 700. I think a couple of them might be paying 725. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And my profit for that particular one is now 1,300 and something. It used to be 1,400, but council tax has gone up. So, yeah, so it's 1,300 and something. Now that is my highest one.
Yeah.
Most of mine, across my portfolio, it's always seemed to average out at 1,000 per property.
Per month.
Some at like 800, 900, and it does depend on the bills each month, but they average out around about 1,000 a month when I've done the proper calculation.
So
So
to be really clear for people listening, that means that Jackie's making, if I've understood it correctly, roughly 1,000 on average, £1,000 per month per property that she gets
yeah,
a rent to rent deal on
yeah,
net, and that means after all her costs have gone out.
yeah, yeah.
Smashing.
And it's true because like when I had my first three properties, I was earning just over 3,000 for 1 to 2 hours a week. Not
Yeah,
even.
well, not bad, eh?
Yeah.
So my last question, I think more or less would be, do you think this is for everyone? I don't mean, well, maybe I do. Do you think property investing is for everyone? Do you think rent or HMOs is for everyone, or are there particular skills you need, or how could people work out if they're listening if this is for them? Maybe just because they feel passionate about it. I don't know, or passionate about leaving their jobs. What would be your view on that?
So I think anybody can do rent to rent HMO. I
Mm,
really do.
yeah,
Because there are so many different ways you can do rent to rent HMO, but my model's so simple, anybody can do it. I firmly believe that. Being an HR professional, an ex-HR professional, I've often talked about transferable skills. People don't know, and I spoke about this earlier as well. I always used to think property investors were this certain type of person. Well, look at me. I mean, and I was 55 when I got my first ones, nearly 56. So I think anybody can do rent to rent HMOs. I actually think anybody can do property because it's all about your mind. I've done so much work on my mindset and studied loads. If you get into the right state of mind and you've got a vision for your life and your vision is clear, because most people don't really know what they want to do, or what they want from life. They think they do, but they don't really. If you can get really, really clear about what you want from life, I think that will drive you and to choose the right strategy and keep you going when things get a little bit tough and you don't get your first yes just like that because you won't. So I think my belief is it's all to do with your state of mind, and that anybody can do it. Now, look, when I first started out, I said this at the beginning, I didn't think I'd be doing rent to rent HMO. I didn't want to deal with loads and loads of tenants. But actually, I love my tenants really. Some of them are a bit of a pain, but I really like going and doing my inspections and going and speaking to. But we've all going speaking to my tenants and finding out about them and, little things. I have really good relationships with my tenants. So I actually think everybody has got skills that they can, transferable skills, they just don't realize it. So if you are a person, if you can talk to people, if you can organize yourself, I mean, my organizational skills aren't great, I don't think, but you can organize yourself a little bit. If you can read, and do some basic maths, you can do this. It's not rocket science.
Mhm.
So the biggest thing is building relationships with people, being able to talk to people,
Mhm.
tenants and landlords and letting agents. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think anybody can do it.
there you go.
And
Well,
you
you
don't
hit
have to be particularly interested in property. If you're looking for cash flow to change your life so that you can do things that you do enjoy, you'll do it, won't you?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make things work. Okay, well, that's been eye-opening and fabulous. I hope people have enjoyed that. We will, of course, post Jackie's contact details as always with the episode, but people are lazy, so how can people get hold of you, Jackie?
If you type Jackie Gammage into Facebook, you'll find me. If you type Jackie Gammage into Instagram, you'll find me. I've just started using TikTok as well, but I don't understand TikTok.
Uh,
Yeah, that's how you'll find me.
and for anyone watching in black and white, Gammage is Gammage. Uh, Fabulous. Well, yeah, it's been an absolute privilege. Ah, and I can back up because I was researching Jackie before I got to speak to her today. I think her Facebook page is really, really good. I really like the your Facebook page. I think it's really sort of accessible and easy to understand and read. I
Oh,
haven't read every
good.
post or anything, but
Why
there's one.
not?
Well, yeah. Well, give me a minute. Let's start here. But there's one particularly one that caught my eye from the 23rd of July, where you were posting about sort of mistakes you made and little bits and bobs. But I thought it was a really good post, and people should check that sort of thing out if they're interested. And obviously, get in touch with Jackie if they're interested in pursuing this particular strategy or indeed property in general. Um,
Yeah, I like to be honest, Tom. Like I'm not, I can't lie to save my life anyway, but yeah, there's lots of stuff. I try and make things useful as well. Anything that I'm learning. I've also got my Sunday sauce, my property sauce on Sunday that I'm now calling it. So people know it's property, but I do that every Sunday at 10 o'clock as well. I forgot to mention that. I hope you don't mind.
so
Yeah, yeah. So it's 30 minutes of me reflecting on what I've learned that I think people can take away from my rent to rent business, but also mindset stuff as well. A lot of mindset. So yeah,
there you go. Even more excitement. Thanks so much, Jackie. Appreciate you taking the
thank
time,
you.
and thanks for everyone watching and listening at home.